Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Coach's Corner. We're happy to be doing another limited series of video review. It's been quite some time since we've done this. We did it once a month for a year and some change, and it's been at least a year since we've done it. We have 4 episodes once a quarter for this year that we've got set up. So tonight, May, August, November, I think, and this is a series that has proved beneficial to a number of people who have come on and been willing to allow us to pick apart their fights and give them some advice and hopefully send them on a path to becoming better fighters. It's been a really good series. It's just been a while since we've done it, and we happen to have enough folks to fill out several episodes for this year. So we're super excited to be doing it. For our coaches tonight, I'm joined by, as always, Her Grace Helga, Sir Helga, His Grace Jarl Thorfin, and Count Octamasades from Montier, another one of our coaches. Happy to have all you guys back. I got my dogs going nuts up there. So yeah, we're super excited. All these coaches are like experts in this particular endeavor and looking at video, analyzing it, picking it apart, telling you how you can be a better fighter. And tonight we've got a couple of our fighters that are on. We've got Antonius Gracchus, known as Twyg from East Kingdom. And we got Master Hrothgierr Hroaldrsson from West Kingdom. Tell you what, Twyg, let's have you just give us a basic introduction of yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, you good?
Yep. I'm trying to get the. It's been a while since I've done this.
No problem. There it is. Yeah, full blower. Yeah. So, thank you for the opportunity here. So, I'm in the East Kingdom. I'm in the south side of East Kingdom in Utgard. So, I've been fighting for just about 2.5 years at this point. So, I've done Crown, done a couple other things, and I'm just making my way through having a really good time in the SCA. So, doing fighting, mainly center grip and one sick. Just picked up glaive recently, and also really enjoying the ANS process as well with some metal engraving. But yeah, thank you for the opportunity here.
All right, glad to have you. Hrothgierr?
Howdy, folks. I am in the West Kingdom up in Rivenoak. I've been in the SCA for a little over 25 years. Had a couple breaks in and out, and been fighting throughout that time. Coming back from about a 5-year layoff this past season, and really enjoying finding my love of the game again. So, looking forward to hearing everybody's feedback and getting some good knowledge out here. Thanks for having me.
All right, sounds good. So I'm going to throw this over to Helga, and I'm going to see if I can share. She's got some ground rules that we usually cover. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can share this again. It's been a while.
And I'm muted while I'm being sassy at Sean.
There you go.
Yeah. No, that's why I was like, no one's reacting.
All right, can you see that?
Yeah, no one's reacting because I was muted. There was my one to show is like I mute myself wrong, and then also I'll drop an F-bomb at some point. So welcome to video analysis like 101. So each show we focus on 2 people. And then also here in the audience, this is partly training for you guys. So we're trying to make sure that we break this down well enough that the audience takes away how we do this, because video analysis is one of the strongest and best tools that we have for our fighting and for everybody to get better, both our coaches and our students. And so there's basically like 5 points that we're going to go over in the process. Like 1, I'm going to remind everybody it's data, not emotion. Like what we're looking at is 4 points of failure in these fights. We're going to be talking about that a lot. We're not trying to pick on the people that are here or be mean, but we are focusing on the biggest deficiencies so we can make the greatest change in somebody's fight the fastest. We're going to be thinking simple. We're going to be looking for what is the simplest answer. Are they leaning forward too much? Are their weight off? We're not going to be looking to give them some trick shot to make their fight better. We're actually looking at fundamental basics. We're watching for consistent errors and patterns. So you're going to hear all of us. We'll start like focusing in on one thing together as coaches. And sometimes the coaches will pick their own thing to look at, but typically we all tend to like kind of narrow down together. It's a really cool process to see happen. We work backwards. So we're going to typically, you'll see us watch somebody get struck, and then we'll work backwards from there to find out why. Typically about three motions is all we need to see to figure out why somebody got hit or why they lost or won a fight. And the other thing is there's nothing more than 2 or 3 points of correction. The human brain is a simple thing. And so we're going to try to make it to where we have simple answers so people can walk away with viable things to work on in their fight. The other thing that we're really going to work on is ruthless self-assessment is not cruel. So in video analysis and analysis of your fights, everything that you should be looking at is, again, we're going to go right back to that point one, data, not emotion. We are looking for the fundamental flaws in our fights, and to be ruthless in that assessment, we have to kind of divorce emotion occasionally. And so, again, you're going to hear us be critical of things, but it's meant to create a foundation to work forward from. So, and also both our volunteers tonight, we want to say thank you very much. You're coming on to a very public show and giving us all the opportunity to break down your fights in a forum where everybody can learn. So I just want to say thank you very, very much. And I really look forward to this evening with you.
Right on. Okay, well, I think with that, since I've got the master controls here, so we're gonna jump right into the video. We decided to start with Twyg. He's got one of his fights from this last East Kingdom Crown, and you'll see as we go through. Again, let me get back to sharing. I had that up before. As Helga mentioned, we're coming to this from a point of failure, and the reason for that is, as she mentioned, as humans, we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. And so we're looking at this from a point of failure because that's something that can be fixed. There is a limit to which you can improve something that you're already doing well. But when you find a point of failure, that's something that you can make massive changes, or like you can make small changes to make a massive difference in your fight. And so that's the perspective that we're coming from. Again, it's not meant to be cruel. We're not picking on these guys, but it's like we all look at it like failure is where we start the training process, and that's where we can tell you how to be better. And so what we're going to be looking for in these fights is we're gonna play it through. We're gonna play full speed. There's some YouTube shortcut commands that if you're not familiar with, if you just go to YouTube and you hit a question mark, it'll bring up a list of hotkey commands to help you do this a little bit faster. Once we found a point of failure, we're going to back it up a little bit, probably 5 to 10 seconds maybe. We're going to look at it at quarter speed. We're going to do as much frame by frame as we can. When you're doing video review with frame by frame, you get detail, but you also lose some context. But when you watch it full speed, our sport goes so fast, a lot of times you're just going to totally miss what happened. So we're going to back it up. We're going to go through the detail. We're going to go step by step. And then we're going to run through it again like half speed, so you can kind of follow along a little bit better with a better understanding of what's going on, and you get a little more context for it. Because with the frame by frame, you just like, oh, well, that looks flat, or that looks, like it, hit shield or whatever. And it's sometimes it can be hard without some additional context on what's happening in the flow of the fight to really see what's going on. But you need all of that. You need the frame by frame, and you need the context. And then we're going to watch it full speed again, and you will be amazed at how much better you can see what's happening in the fight not just because you know what's happening now, but like just having gone through it at the slower speeds, you'll be amazed at what you're going to be able to see. So that's kind of the process that we're going to be going through to start this. I'm going to run through a couple times, and then we'll jump into to some analysis. So, all right, you guys seeing that?
Seeing what?
Never mind. Hang on.
Nothing
Let
yet.
me. How about that? There we
There
go.
There you go.
There it is.
That's better.
There we go.
All right, telling you, it's been a while. All right. So Twyg here is with the kite shield and the Roman kit. And also, as we're going through this, spoiler alert, Twyg will take this guy's leg. We might want to look at that a little bit later, but that's not the point. Because we are looking at Twyg's fight, one of the things, again, we're looking for failures on his part. And so when he gets hit here shortly, one thing to consider about this when we're isolating deficiencies, when Twyg gets hit in the leg here, we are going to consider this a failure on his part rather than a success on the part of his opponent. Because we want to know how he got his leg hit and what he can do to keep that from happening again. All right, so I'm going down to quarter speed. So now I can do, nope, wrong button. Now I can effectively do frame by frame. So I've got it at quarter speed. Now I'm hitting the arrows next to the M and the question mark keys. I'll say, to me, it looks like this guy just taps high a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, freezes him up.
And he's got you leaning back. Goes high. Kind of comes down behind that. Is this coming through okay? Not too much latency?
Looks
Looks
great.
okay. Yeah.
Yep, not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah, and I went for a thrust and missed it.
Yep.
He reflex. Well, he was planning it.
Yep.
Effectively.
All right, I'm gonna go full speed again here so we can get to the headshot. Yeah, spoiler alert: Twyg loses this fight. Oh, blech. No.
Oh, poached eggs.
Breakfast. There we go.
I don't know what that was all about. All right, I'm gonna slow this down again. I'm just gonna go ahead and bring up the hotkey. So for those watching at home, I just hit question mark while I'm in YouTube. This gives us all the hotkey shortcuts. The ones that I'm using right here, there's decrease playback rate. So that's the shift, and then the arrow keys next to the M and the question mark. And then so increase and decrease playback. And then without the shift key, that's what allows you to do one frame back and forth, especially at quarter speed. So these are some of the commands that you can use. Definitely recommend just becoming familiar with
what's
these.
the key you hit to access this screen?
I hit a question mark.
Question mark. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yep. So you just go to YouTube and you just hit a question mark, and
Got it.
and that'll bring that right up.
Cool. It's really
And
helpful.
then I think you hit escape to get out of that, maybe. Oh, dismiss. There you go. All right, so we're gonna get back to this last headshot here. Maybe it's just me. I think you blocked that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say the first
No.
one. The first one was flat.
Yeah. Exactly.
First blow's flat, then he follows it with a
Yeah,
second.
because that's going up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not-
you missed it. Yeah, you definitely. Well, you quit fighting because you thought you were dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is flat, and it catches a lot of your shield.
Now,
And then
do you
that
remember how it felt when it hit? Did it feel like it was it a loud shot, or did it ring your helmet, or
A lot of positive pressure down
Oh,
because when you see it, you see the tip just pop down. But yeah, it just felt a lot of positive pressure, and I was like, that must be good.
yeah,
I
okay.
took it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I get it.
I mean, I would say, especially as new as you are, always
Yep.
always take on the light side.
Yeah.
You
Thanks.
can
Oh,
just,
I way rather err on the caution.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you're not going to come out of this looking bad.
Nope.
yeah, for sure.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, Helga, do you want to kick this off a little bit?
So has anybody, like, being a new fighter, has anybody talked to you about facing the threat yet?
Not in those terms.
All right.
Like,
So one of the big things, like, and again, we're going to go for like the biggest flaw that I see in the fight right now is the entire time you are facing center mass. So the one thing that we teach all our students is I'm never going to kill you. The sword is going to kill you. And so when we talk about facing the threat, we're actually talking about facing basically the median point between my shoulder and my hand. And what this does is this faces your entire force and your block towards it shortens the line that you need to, like, their threat. When you're facing center mass, you always have to move to deal with whatever offensive threat they put into play. And so in this case, you're seeing your shield try to basically chase his hand the entire time. And so this is where I'd actually start, is we actually want to have your feet and your body turned by about 10 degrees to outline that shoulder and right on the outside of the hand. And what this is going to do is it's going to make it so you don't actually have to move your shield to block 90% of what he threw here. This is also super common, by the way, in fighters all the way up to knights facing center mass, because when we practice on a Pell, we face the center of the Pell most of the time. A lot of people don't have these conversations, but you can even see here, you are literally facing the center of him, which means you have to throw a longer distance to get to your target. You have to move your shield to block. And even when you're resetting, again, you can see right here, you're facing the center of his body. And so does this make sense, or do you want to play with this a little bit in detail?
This makes sense, and I've just heard it as standoff center line. So the terminology is a little bit different.
Yeah.
I noticed that I'm not off center line. I am like dead. You're absolutely right. I'm dead center on him. So if I was just off to the stick side, or either one, I think that's what you're saying.
So
I just want to translate
if you
it.
think about it instead of off center line, because the reason why I personally don't like off center line is a lot of people will think of it as like a parallel, and so they'll try to take a step instead of it being like a wedge.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about it as a wedge, all you're doing is, even if you're in the same space, you're just turning to face that, and that wedge needs to, their shoulder and sword should be within that wedge.
Okay, great.
And I would say your off center line and you're facing the danger are two separate things.
Okay.
Facing the danger.
I would agree with that.
You can face the danger from owning the right side. I call it bisecting your opponent. You can bisect them to the right and still face the danger. You can bisect them to the left and still face the danger. You can be in parallel with them, but still facing the danger.
Right. Okay. I like that.
Okay. Thank you.
What I'm seeing a lot, and which I think is one of the fail points.
All right,
that I'm
Helga,
seeing.
did you have something else you wanted to cover, or should we?
Oh, sorry.
So I think that we should start with just like the simple things and go through the line, and then there's a broader thing that I want to talk about later, but I want to make sure that I'm seeing it consistently. Octa?
All right.
My only
Octa,
point,
let's go ahead and throw it to you since you're jumping in there.
sorry, I get excited. The other thing I'm seeing, and that I think would also help back up what Helga's talking about, was facing the danger, is after you leg your opponent, at no time do you have control of the fight.
Correct.
You come in hard, you try and kill them, regardless of what they're doing, and then you leave. And then you pass the danger zone, and you try and kill them, and then you leave. So I think being a little more deliberate in your approach, taking just a little bit of time, especially at a practice, to be in the fight and control the fight a little bit. I mean, you control the when, the where, and the time, because you have feet at this point. And I would say come in a little more deliberate, establish that facing the danger and a little bit of control, and not be in such a hurry to finish the fight, so to speak.
Okay. Not Swansea.
All right. Thorfin?
Yeah. Again, I agree with both of them about the facing the danger part. I don't really call it that, but I understand the concept, and I'm going to stick with that phrase because it's the one we've been using mostly. But I do feel that, like Octamasades was saying, that you should you can still face danger and step off the center line. If you would have done that to either side, you would have been able to control the fight more. And like they were saying as well, you come in really hot, and you don't really have any kind of you just are just there. You're just in front of him, and it looks like you had a plan that you were going to do, and that plan didn't really work out. And then suddenly you are now going, well, I'm here. I'm just going to keep swinging. And so it kind of got you confused, and so you stepped out, which I think is a good thing. If you get in a bad spot, it's okay, especially when they're late, to just leave that to the fight. You can always cross it back in and execute your opponent. But see, when you get in here, if you would have came on either side, you would have had more control of the fight, right? And so just that's about having self-assurance of the timing and the tempo of the fight to just be able to comfortably cross through that middle zone, right? Okay. A lot of people are worried they're going to get hit when they go through there, so you're trying to get through there real fast, right? Yeah. But I think you could have approached it much more clarity of what you were trying to execute. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and you read my mind because I'm like, let me get through the danger zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Get in, but
yeah,
it's
exactly.
Center. Yeah.
You just moved to a different danger zone. Is all you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good, but knowing is half the battle, right? So now we can start working on it. But there we go.
All right, Helga, you said you wanted to cover something else.
Yeah, the second thing is we're going to talk about a little bit of mechanics in this. So I don't know if you can see that. So it's not too bad, but you're heel stepping, and heel stepping is a side effect of actually not being in full balance. So we're gonna talk a little bit of powerlifting stuff and everything else like that. We don't lift heavy weights on our heels actually, and so we need to. One of the things we're seeing is these very big steps with this heel land, which means you're actually not engaged in balance almost at all. Which says, amusingly enough, with how fast you're moving and how quickly you're able to sprint in, you're relatively athletic, which means that you're probably going to have a little bit of a time trying to figure this out. But a heel step typically says that you're always loaded to go backwards, and you're going to start reaching with your shoulders. And you can see this as you get close. You can actually see this in the video right now that you're kind of hunched a little bit forward. We call this typically reaching with our back, which means the shoulder blades aren't engaged, which means you have to then use this huge motion to generate power in the fight. And we're going to see this as you continue throwing. We're seeing you make these huge sweeping motions to generate a shot, which makes the shot longer, which makes it more telegraphed, everything else like that. So the first place that we want to work on this is actually getting your abs up and engaged in the fight, which is going to make it to where you can push your whole body forward and get you on the ball of your foot and take a real step, push with those glutes. And it means that you can throw with frame weight transfer. So your flat snap goes from something that comes all the way back here in this huge sweeping motion across, because either my shoulder is stuck forward, and so I'm having to make this sweeping motion. If I get my shoulder blade back and down and my abs engaged, now I can just get that elbow forward and throw that flat snap much, much quicker. And so there's a lot of concepts within this, but where this comes from for me, when I see that heel step, I can tell you your abs are not engaged and that your shoulders are hunched forward naturally. This typically speaks to you're relatively strong enough to get the job done and don't know how to completely connect your body. Do you do any heavy lifting? Like, do you do like straight up like any powerlifting at all?
No, not at all.
Okay. What sport did you come out of?
Cross country.
Okay, so you came from cross country.
Yeah.
So you're actually, amusingly enough, in running, we tend to lean forward a little bit, right? Because then that means we can kind of, like, when we're tired, we can fall forward, everything else like that. However, cross-country runners tend to have insanely strong backs because you're used to, like, carrying that load. And so if you could do me a favor real quick, do you work at the desk?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where you're going to have to consciously work on this in your fight, because both of your sport and your job speak to wanting to be like this. Like, one of the things we don't want in fighting is, you see how this capsule in my shoulder is now rotated forward?
Yeah.
There's no power here. There's absolutely nothing. So we have to make a sweeping motion. One of the things we're going to want to work on in life is actually like bringing that shoulder blade back and down. And it's not pinch your shoulder blades together, by the way. It's not tits forward here. What I want to do is I actually want to think about like shrugging my shoulder blades into my pocket. And that's going to pull my entire rib cage into alignment with my abs so I can actually use them and actually get that elbow forward. We can't get that elbow forward, so this is where I have a little bit of a soapbox. Our elbow in every shot must lead the hand to preserve this joint. And so with a shoulder forward, we can't actually really do it. Our body gets in the way. Shoulder blade back and down, like we're trying to sink it into our pockets. Now my elbow can move freely across my body. This is how we get to frame weight transfer. And this is how you can either do this in that traditional, very rotational mechanic, or frame weight transfer to generate power. But if that shoulder's hunched, you're going to start seeing how you were throwing. You see that big whip motion to get yourself clear. And so right now at your desk and in the video, here's the tell in the video, is I'm seeing you do this in the video. And it's actually kind of hard for me to see shape because I've had a lot of physical therapy to not do this because I was really bad at it. But in the video, we see that classical shoulders forward. So while you're at your desk, the best way to practice this is actually to sit and put your shoulder blades in your pocket and just practice that feel. And while you're in your rig, we're also going to want to look for this because it's going to allow your arm to actually mechanically move correctly. And so this is a relatively minute, like this is a really geek out thing that we just hit. But we want to get rid of, like if you're watching it in video, we want to not see this. This is really, really bad. And it's also going to make it to where you eventually develop tennis elbow.
Sure. One thing I do want to throw in too is I did have and continue to and have to watch out for, especially at like Burka with 3 hours of fighting, is I would have my mid back screaming in the thoracic, right? Because it's all C shape and all I'm doing is trying to use those. So if anybody else is watching and you have that pain right there, that's probably not, among many reasons. So I had to watch out. So I'm glad you're calling it out because I've been watching my videos going, why do I have that C shape? You finally explained why I have the C shape. It's
also partially the product of the thing, as she was saying before, where you don't have your feet underneath you.
Yeah.
Your feet are not a priority. Your feet are always following. That's part of that heel step.
Okay.
You don't have a solid foundation to begin with underneath you.
Okay.
Thorfin, you got something?
Yeah, about the footwork issue we were talking about just now. So in all fights, in almost every martial art, at all times, you want to be on the balls of your feet. You want to kind of be sunk down a little bit horse stance. You know what that is? Where you're right. So what this allows you to do is then to be able to transfer your weight at any given time to either foot. Once your heels hit the ground, at that point, that foot is basically nailed to the ground, and so are you. You can't really pick it up in a simple manner. It takes a big body shift to be able to do this. So if you can then get over kind of the center of your body, right? Which this also will, like Helga was saying, engage your core, right? So now you're more upright, but you're also still ability to move at any given time, any direction. So this is something that footwork drills really help with. So just try and do like at practice, take a couple minutes at the beginning and focus on just being able to move left and right, forward and back on the balls of your feet, and just get used to this. So anytime you're crossing into a combat or trying to exit combat, you can do it with ease in any direction. Okay, so that's one of the things that I really think is important about the footwork element, right? And there's footwork drills you can do. I believe on Coach's Corner we have some videos showing like the little like grid that you put on the ground and a footwork tree, and then you can step in and out learning to do that. There's also boxing videos you can watch where not all about boxing is going to translate to what we do, but a lot of the footwork will be similar. Okay, so those are different types of resources you can do to find those things. And I think that other than that, on the footwork part, I do have a thing with the shield, which we'll talk about when we get to it, but I'm okay. I just wanted to throw in some footwork stuff.
All right. Helga, you want to jump in there?
So, like, physicality question. When you walk, what muscle mass do you walk with?
Muscle mass.
Like, if you can think about walking right now, what muscle do you use to pick up your foot? And
quad.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should actually be using your glute, by the way.
Okay.
Ping me after this. I'll send you some info on like walking. This is actually going to help that heel step. You cannot not heel step if you're moving your leg with your quad.
Okay.
And so we can get this is a geek out that we can even do at the end of this. I don't want to consume the show with it. But this is that answer right now explains why you're landing heel first.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm down. I love that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So we'll talk about it after. Awesome.
Yeah. I just don't want to consume it. I was like, I should ask a fundamental question here.
No, I love that stuff. Yeah, that type of geek out I'm into. So good stuff. Okay.
I'm just going to throw up one of the questions we had here. Max, you're asking if we'll be accepting questions from the chat. Absolutely. We love getting questions. So if there's something that you guys want to know a little bit more about, we'll see if we can pop that in and talk about it for you. Helga dropped out for a second. Octa, you got something else?
So just to add, I could go for hours on footwork and body mechanics, but when Thorfin mentioned balls of the foot, I go a little bit deeper than that. So if this is your foot, the ball is right up here on the pad. Yeah. My focus is right behind the ball of the foot. There's a void. If that is the part that you engage into the earth, you can still wiggle your toes. You can still move your foot, and that allows you to pivot. And when you practice centering and stacking your gravity down, everything rocks right to the earth through there. And that's what I see with how they're explaining the hunch and the grabbing. I don't see your power, your mechanic drop really below, even down to your belly button. Very few of your techniques pull anything lower than your pecs. So my goal as you're warming up with practice and you're moving, maybe some sword drills, you're lowering and sinking, take a breath, and even just physically thinking about a drop and just let gravity drop all the way as far as you can get it, and then move your technique from your dantian, from below your belly button, and just anchor in from there. Thorfin, did you?
Yeah, so one of the things another way of trying to get some of that across maybe in a different manner is when you're doing this type of movement, like Octamasades was saying with that section of your foot, and you can actually feel the ground, like your power's literally going to come through the ground, up through into your like hips and core, and then you can then transfer it to your higher muscles, your shoulders and things like that. So as this blow comes, you can feel it generate honestly from the ground up through your body to the end of your hand. And so if you're not feeling that with those blows, you're not connecting your strongest muscle group for blow, which is your core. Yeah. Your core generates the majority of all your power that you need. Your arm is really just guiding the blow in for you, right? and little tweaks on the way in. That's all it needs to do, right? If you get a good power generation core going, that's going to do all the work for you. So that starts from feeling the earth, right? When you push off the ground, you want to be able to feel your foot, your toes be able to grab, right? As you twist or turn or pull that power up into you. And when you get better at it, you will actually be able to store that energy and then be able to use it like secondarily. So you bring it up and then you can fire it at a later time. So it just takes really just focusing on that. And this is something as one of the super fundamentals that will change your entire fight. If you can get this power generation based from the ground up, it's really huge. And like you're clearly doing well enough with your aiming and your blow selection, but this is an absolute game changer. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And it's absolutely like I've felt it occasionally. It's like 5% of the time when I get it right, and it was just like the person's like, "Oof," and I'm like, "Oh, sorry," and I'm like, "What? I didn't even throw that."
Right.
No, those are the moments. So it's like, I hit the golf ball right. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't know what I did, but I did it right now. So that calls it out. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Effortless power.
That's exactly what it felt like. It was like, oh my God, hey, that worked. Yeah.
That's what happens when you're not fighting gravity or yourself.
There you go.
All right. I think we do have a little bit more video for Twyg, but I think we've covered it. I think it's going to be a common thread in pretty much everything you're doing here. I'll just throw in that I agree with all these guys. Footwork is everything. Footwork is the absolute foundation of everything that we do. As I like to say, I'm going to hit you with my stick, but I kill you with my feet. Yeah. And one of the things that I'm seeing that they've kind of skirted around a little bit with the steps that you're taking, that heel step that you're taking, the way I see it, you're stepping in a way that is pick up the foot, put down the foot, pick up the foot, put down the foot. And if you can get on the balls of your feet and slide into your opponent, you're just kind of gliding right across the top of the grass or the floor or wherever you're at. But when you pick up a foot and put down a foot, you're putting yourself off balance. So if you can find a way to kind of get to slide into that. But yeah, I think footwork is going to be one of the big things you're working on there. That is going to make the biggest difference in what we're seeing. So, yeah. Well, and I think getting good foundation under you is not just related to that, but if you can get a good foundation, I think it's going to address what she was talking about and where your shoulders are.
And it'll help with some of the sword technique as well. We could talk later if you want to PM me sometime about the wraps. I can give you some nuggets. Your wrap's not breaking in the right spot.
Right.
The wrap is knocked on this one.
Yeah. It's also massive. They're huge, sweeping wraps. So
you cut through. So that leg shot wrap you through, your hand passes through the plane at the same time or slightly before your sword lands, and that wrap should stop here. The sword should continue all the force and impact, and I think it even rolls a little flat when you throw it.
And actually wrap.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, wrap, back sword.
Right.
Back blade. Yeah. Thumb side.
Yeah.
All right, Thorfin.
All right. So another thing that's looks like you're doing pretty commonly is, and this is a real normal thing for someone fighting for 2.5 years, is you and your shield and your sword are not friends, right? And so what you're doing is you are attacking and putting your shield away, or you are moving and having your shield do something, but your sword nothing, right? And so a lot of these, like for instance, when you get legged, your opponent actually, you go for a thrust, but you move your shield out of the way, right? Allowing him to get a better angle on your leg and hit you there. So I think that's one of those things that you also need to practice at the Pell, or when you're doing slow work with your like Uki or opponent, right? Is to really focus on the shield has to be in a functional position at all times, right? Like a standard defensive position. You have to learn to be able to throw all your shots while doing this. And if you're fighting your shield, and every time you're leaving, every time you step, your opponent's getting free shots at you. Okay, so if they see you step and you move out, your legs automatically open, and they don't even have to look; they can just fire, and they'll just hit it, and you'll be like, that guy didn't even look. It's because he saw your shield move, right? Okay, thank you.
All right. Finally, I'm just going to go. Octa, you got any last comments for Twyg?
No, I think the big thing for me, structural wise, is to build it from the ground up, relax down into the ground, into your feet. Because if you start to work on all these other techniques without having your core foundation, you're going to have to relearn how to throw a flat snap, relearn how to throw a wrap based on new foundational stuff. So foundation, work on movement, set victory conditions at practice. When you feel yourself lifting your leg wrong or closing too hard or that, just yell good, reset and start over. Yeah.
Yep.
Righty-o. All right. Twyg, that wasn't so bad, was it?
Not at all. It's all good, and things. It reminds me of things I've heard, and framed different ways. So it's very good. Thank you. Right.
Well, hopefully we haven't scared off Hrothgierr. I mean, he's still on the screen here, so hopefully it wasn't too bad, and he's ready to get into what he's been doing. All right, you ready?
I am. I'm thinking now about everything you told Twyg and trying to apply that to my fights. So
yeah, you're probably going to instantly see is like, yep, that's me.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're going to see a lot of the same things because the basics and the fundamental of the fight don't change much. Yeah. It's just how much you can apply them to the fight. And so, yeah.
And as I was saying before we went live, one of the reasons that we do this segment with unbelted fighters is because most unbelted fighters are going to have exactly these same problems. And so you guys provide an example of some of the most common things that we run into, and hopefully somebody else will see what they're doing in their own fights off of what they're seeing here, and hopefully they'll be able to fix that. So let's see. I'm going to go back. We can get back to this first one here. Okay, so Hrothgierr, you are in the green with the spear, correct?
That is me.
I was lucky enough to actually witness these in person, so feels
All right, so for those watching,
so Sean, I think we're going to end up needing to watch two of these. Just with a spear fighter. I think, can we watch two of these? Because there's a consistent. I want to see if it shows up with a secondary fighter that is either a little bit more aggressive or a little less aggressive than this one. This is a good mid range, but I want to see if there's a consistency on this one.
All right, you want to skip to the next one then?
Yeah, would you please? Sorry, I'm going to be a little picky on this one.
Same fighter, different angle?
Exactly that. It's Sir Helga.
Okay. Yeah, that's problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to hurt the young American.
I also think the Riven Oak one has a different fighter that's fighting him.
No, I would think so. Yeah, Sir Alvar lives in Sacramento. This was in Sacramento.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that Sir Alvar? Did he come out of retirement?
Yeah.
Oh, I love this.
And he's, said he's really excited about doing more. So it was good to see him.
That's good.
A new helmet is why you're not recognizing him. Yeah. I think those are all true.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Helga, you seeing what you want to see?
Yeah.
We're gonna start with Octa on this one.
Yep.
Oh boy. So
all right,
I watched
ahead,
a bunch. Can you hear me?
Yeah, looks like you're in the hot seat.
All right. So I watched a bunch of these today. Thank you for sending
Yeah.
so many. It was great to see the variety. The first thing I'm noticing is most of the time, the good thing is you're keeping your backhand all the way back. So you maximize your range with the weapon, which is great. But your fight doesn't change when the range changes. So I find that your hands are always back throughout all the different range changes, which is limiting your toolbox for technique. I find I've been studying glaive a little bit lately, trying to learn more about it. And when you get to that mid range, being able to choke up a little bit to give yourself some more depth and more blocking ability would be really advantageous. And then when you get into that A range, being all the way choked up and vertical with your glaive so that you can block the sword blows better and move with your opponent instead of always having to back out of the fight, which always seems to be on your back foot and straight back out.
Correct.
Adding some depth and being able to turn and pull your opponent into a step that you can then take advantage of. But getting a little more threatening, you kind of are pawing at them. And then when he engages, see how your hands are always back, even though he's changing range and coming in. I think you lose a lot of ability to take advantage of them throwing the blow. Once you get to that mid-hand grip and pull a block vertically, you have a lot more ability to strike your opponent. When I'm fighting folks with the glaive that don't choke up like that, and I get into a mid or close range, I just have to put my head between your hands and get close to the haft, the part that's not going to hurt me, or at least not kill me anyways. It still might hurt. But that's what I'm seeing right off. Like right here, your tip is not really threatening at first. And then you get into this fight where now you're at his optimal range and you still are having to move away to throw the blow. So instead of always trying to keep them at that, for lack of a better term, that C range, your initial long shot range, find comfort in that mid game. Choke up with your hands into a mid, go a little more perpendicular to your opponent as opposed to parallel. I find usually the time they're killing you, you're still trying to throw blows through that offensive part, and he's going to be quicker because he's controlling the range through the entire time of the fight.
Okay. Yep.
That's kind of my 25 cents right there. This is not my skill set. It's just something I'm studying. And then I would just say that explosiveness from the range with the tip, being able to threaten. They need to know that coming through that into the B range for them is going to be a problem. And I feel like he's sort of sauntering his way in. And I think that you could be a little more threatening, especially with the left hand back. I find a few times in these videos you rotate to your right hand back, which seems in the fights to be less menacing, and people seem to relax a little bit more when that hand is back. But when you're able here and your tip's a little high, I would pull it even lower, right at the belly button and make him have to look down. Now he's sword blade forward. Now he's actually thinking about it. But as soon as you switch hands, he's no longer, he's just pawing at you and he's not worried about the fight so much.
Okay.
And
Now that echoes a lot of what I was feeling in the fight. My perception from the fight was that I couldn't get a gauge on his tension at all from what he was showing me. So that really does.
But I mean, you're really maximizing your range.
All right.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. So one of the things that what Octamasades is saying is that when your hand's back like that, if your opponent gets just past the tip of your sword, and if he can touch your weapon, the strength is then, it's easier for him to control the weapon because your hands are far back from the point, right? So they can fulcrum off of that, controlling your weapon more. So if you were, as they come in, you slide your hand up, right? It makes your power base stronger, so you can control the weapon better, right? They can't just push it from with their hand. It's not, their strength versus your strength. You're using your whole body now. The thing with your opening stance is you have to have some kind of visible threat right off the bat. And this is a point. It's high guard, whatever you're doing. High guard could be above you, right? The weapon high, so you could, when they come in, you're doing a big cut. They have to address that. If you have the point forward, they have to believe that there's a thrust, right? That's going to be devastating to them. So, but if you have kind of this neutral where they're allowing them to just like set the tempo of what's going to happen in this exchange, well, then you're now behind the ball, right? You're behind the curve. You're trying to catch up with your opponent. You have to control everything in this type of very mobile fight. This is not like a tank style, weapon. You need to be on the back, on your good foot the whole time. So that means rolling out to the sides. You need to remember things like your opponent's shield. You can use that as your shield. You can step to that side. They can't throw through their shield, right? Allowing you then to cut and step back out. And just use that as a defense. So yeah, and again, when you're retreating, you're only going straight backwards.
All right.
Roll out to one side.
Right, and before we pitch to Helga here, I'm gonna pull up that comment as Thorfin was saying. So this is a comment from Duke Tom Northshield. Hrothgierr, I highly recommend you find some time to get with yes. Tom. I've said it before, and I will embarrass him again publicly here, saying that I think Tom is quite possibly the best trainer of that weapon in our sport right now. So if you get an opportunity, highly recommend that. Oh, not sure what's going on here. More commercials.
I think we just need to get you a paid YouTube account.
Yeah, next time we'll use mine or whatever. I have one that's paid now.
Once you get done with the playlist, it just rolls right on there. So anyway, definitely recommend you get with Tom. Tom, thanks for joining us. Always happy to have your input.
I will definitely reach out.
All right, Helga, that's you.
I like how you're like, now we're going to turn Helga loose.
That's right. Grip it and rip it.
So, welcome to fighting like an old school Westie in a new school style. This long stance with your foot turned out. There is nothing sudden you can make your body do in that stance. And we see this over and over in your fight, where you've got your front foot pointed towards the center mass, and that back foot is super long and turned out so you can find your balance again, which means you're going to automatically cross your feet in lateral motion, which means you're now going to avoid lateral motion naturally because it causes you to trip. And thus we're going to go to Tom's comment about that you don't have any lateral motion right now. You only have forward and back. This is absolutely produced by that very long stance. And this is a stance that both you and I were taught coming up. Is that with a pole weapon, you make yourself as invisible as you can be, and you make that foot real long. Well, guess what? You better start running marathons if you're actually going to be fast enough to go backwards in this and be successful. Old school Westies set up their short pole fighters for a lack of success with this We actually need to get you much closer to a boxer stance with that back foot, whatever foot you choose to put back, needs to be facing forward so you can make lateral steps. Again, you can still see that lateral foot or that back foot. As soon as it steps backwards, it is absolutely pointed sideways like a strip fencer. And again, this is going to cause you to cross your feet. This is going to cause you to trip over yourself. This is going to make it so lateral motion doesn't show up, which means we need to get your hips back into the fight and facing the weapon you want to control. The second thing that I really, really see is right now you have no concept of range. You're fighting at his edge of measure the entire fight, which means your danger sensor is picking up where he's becoming a threat, not where you're producing a threat. Does this make sense so far?
Yes.
So you should be a threat to him a foot and a half before he's a threat to you, and we cannot see your opponent start treating you like a threat at all in this fight. He's only starting to treat you like a threat when you've hit his edge of measure, which means you're basing the entire fight off what he's presenting you and not what you're presenting him.
Correct.
And so physically, we need to get your feet turned the correct direction so you can make a lateral step. Again, footwork drills, a lot of cardio in this one, because also naturally you're very heavy-footed in this fight. And that, again, speaks to a very long sense with that back foot turned out, because you can't not be heavy-footed when your feet are very spread apart. There's no way to actually hop in this. There's no way to make a sudden lateral motion. The longer your limbs are apart from each other, the slower they are to get back to where you can generate power. And so that we need to bring that back foot forward and turn it towards where you actually want to go and what you want to control, thus freeing your hips for motion. And also like making you know where your tip is. And this, like, again, I'm gonna roll back and sound a lot like my knight. This is where you need to start setting up like 2-liter bottles and understand where you can throw a thrust, where you can throw a chop, and just start playing around with that, because right now I feel like you don't have a perception of where you are actually deadly in the fight at all. And this is just going to be time and grade with that weapon. So again, also giving you the grace that you've been out for 5 years and you're just coming back. And understanding where you're a threat is one of the hardest things to bring into the game.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. And that puts a different perspective on some of what I was feeling from my end of that fight. So yeah, that definitely makes sense. That
do we have to? Would you have time for you to tell us a little bit about what you were feeling in the fight? What was what did you feel was happening to you?
So effectively, Helga, you called it out right. I couldn't get him to twitch to what I wanted him to twitch to. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't get him to throw tension anywhere in his fight for me to move off of. And yeah, no, I was very definitely outclassed in that fight. And I will be taking your feedback into my headspace and playing with it.
Well, of course, part of what we're trying to do here is put you in that class.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And also, one of the things is anytime I will tell any fighter out there, anytime you feel outclassed means that you're not presenting a threat when you want to. That is an automatic trigger for you to put in your mind. If you feel outclassed in a fight, fucking throw every victory condition that you have set today for the win and start playing around, typically at the edge of measure. Even if it's further back in the fight than you think it is. Like, try adding tension to your shoulders. Try changing your feet. Look at them. Do something and see if you can change that feeling of outclassed and just turn it into a play session about that. Like, all your victory condition is, I made that dude really think about trying to cross the barrier to get to me. That's it. There's your one victory condition, because it's going to give you a shit ton of data all at once. And the best example that I can use is like right now in my fight, because I'm short as shit. Like, I always am outclassed range wise. I play around at their edge of measure. I start presenting a much bigger threat at their edge of measure and start seeing what they then give me. You should be able to do the same thing, Hrothgierr. You're only 2 inches taller than me. Like,
Maybe.
and you're choosing a weapon that should outrange them. Start playing around. When your little danger symbol goes off in the back of your head, all of a sudden start playing around. Be like, what happens if I sit down into that stance a little bit? What happens if I like pick my stick up? And if they start responding, guess what? You're now taking that time in line in the fight. You're making them think about the threat. And so this is what I would say is throw everything else to the wind and start playing around to that edge of measure where your brain says, I feel the danger. That way you continue to get the data of when you're passing that. And Twyg, this will be really good for you too, because you're tall as fuck. There's my one. Like, you're going to be able to get to use this in a completely different manner where you walk out there and your little danger sensor goes off. They're probably already in measure with you.
Yeah.
And so you can start like roll that elbow forward a little bit, pick your hand up, look at them, and you'll watch people just detonate themselves to get out of that fight.
Awesome.
Hey, I'm going to throw up a comment here from Sir Grace Dongle out in Callantyre. He says, you can also move offline during the thrust to change the angle. When your left hand is back, throw for that hip pocket and step as the shot is on the way, which makes the barely open target much bigger.
Yeah,
So,
you can land
and that kind of goes
shot.
to what Helga was talking about is, yeah, I mean, you've got to create that threat. And, you know, when she was talking, there was something that comes to mind for me is something I have to tell a lot of new fighters, because, you know, there's always this hesitance and there's this concern for what your outclassed opponent is going to do to you. But the reality is you have to kill me. I don't have to kill you because you're going to do something stupid. You're going to make a mistake and I'm just going to capitalize on it. I don't need to unload everything that I have in 40 years of fighting on you just so I can get a kill at practice, right? You're being provided an opportunity. You have to kill me, and you have to have the mindset and the mentality that you are pursuing your opponent. You're going after them. You are in command of this fight. You are going to kill your opponent. You're not going to wait for them to die for you, to do you the courtesy of just rolling over, right? You have to make these things happen. And I think a lot of what Helga was talking about, and especially with you going straight back, you're very reactive, where you're responding to what your opponent is doing, and you have to make them respond to what you're doing. You got to come after me. You got to kill me. Octa, did you have more?
Just to play on that, changing those lines, it's just super important. And having two hands on a weapon, you can start the throw with a step and a hand. You can roll right around and get a whole new angle, like Sean was talking about, like Dongle was talking about. Experimenting with that on a stationary target, just to feel how it feels with your body mechanic, and then go out and try and use that at range when folks are moving and threatening you. But yeah, you want to chase that threat. Know when you've hit that bit where people are starting to feel worried. Really important skill as a fighter. Hand off, Thorfin.
Hey, Hrothgierr, next time we get a chance, I'm going to be swinging up to Rivenoak pretty soon, like the next couple of weeks, or if you're going to be at the War of the Baronies this weekend, grab me for a second. We'll talk about rowing. You know what the rowing type thing.
Yep.
It's a way to pivot the weapon and to attack with it. It looks like you're rowing a boat, but it's for what you're doing. It's going to be huge to be able to transition from a thrust to a cut and then back to a defensive position. And like we said earlier, like Helga said, this is a huge cardio style of fighting. You have to move all the time. And so you're on your foot the whole time. And this allows you then to transition between different types of attacks. All right. But just grab me in person. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Hrothgierr, I was also going to mention your stick mechanics for the weapon you're using. The biggest thing that I'm seeing is that you are not getting any stick rotation at the sweet spot of your stick. At the part that you're impacting, there's a bit of stick motion where the whole stick is moving, but you're not getting rotation at the part that is impacting. Thorfin was saying you kind of looks like you're rowing an oar. What I would suggest is you actually kind of want to use that motion to create those circles to be able to get the rotation that you need, and that very much comes in rotating the tip, almost like you are using an oar. So Thorfin could probably go over that with you when you see him this weekend. But that's the thing that I would see is so some of the shots that you're making contact with don't have any power because there's no rotation at the point of impact.
That's a very good observation.
Okay.
So there's that. We're going to get into something else that Helga wants to cover. But first, before we do, I wanted to double check with Hrothgierr and with Twyg both to make sure you guys. We'll start with Hrothgierr since you're still on.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we've said that doesn't make any sense? Anything you'd like to go over more? Anything you'd like better explanation on?
I think this is maybe a little off, a little bit of a tangent, and I'll probably get some of this better from more of the spear folks in the chat. But one thing I'm looking for is drills I can do on the Pelon at home, just to work on that, those shots coming off the lateral movement and working on the small circles, big circles mechanics. So
I'll go over that with you as well this weekend. But
yeah, I think
for sure.
Yeah, no, it's what you've brought up to me is definitely confirmation from what I was feeling in that fight. So,
And Sean, can you confirm we do have also, I believe, videos from like some of the people that commented as well on the Coach's Corner database, right? I think there is does Tom Holliday have one? I thought.
Mine.
I'll link Tom's YouTube channel into our internal chat here. Just a second.
Boom. Yes,
Octay, can you put it in the comments here for unless Tully can post it because he just commented that Duke Tom's got his playlist. Well, Tom's here too. Tom, if you can share us your playlist.
I just dropped it into the internal chat and I can drop it into the.
Well, I'll be subscribing tonight. So
there you go.
And we hang out at 6 o'clock every day of the week.
There you go.
Octa, I'm gonna need a server invite.
$20.
Okay, easy. What's done? Done. That's
Just
easy.
Kidding. Just kidding. There you go. I put it in both places. Tom, get busy.
Right.
You're gonna have to go to work.
All right, Twyg, how about you? Is there anything that we said that doesn't make any sense you'd like a little more information on, or do you feel like you guys have some actionable stuff you can start working on?
I do have actionable stuff, and I think I mentioned, it is consistent feedback with what I've received, and hearing it in a different way helps it become more digestible.
Absolutely.
For sure. And so I don't really have any clarification other than I just have homework to do, right? I have 4 pages of written notes, actually. It might be a small book, but it has 4 pages of it. And so also for all of the work with Hrothgierr, because I just picked up a glaive, right? So now I just put all of that in there as well. And I think really the only thing I would ask is, and I'll work with Sir Helga on this, is the PT side of it, the actual, physicality, or that physiology geeking out to figure all that stuff out, because I do enjoy those mechanics. So that would be great. But no, really, really good stuff. Thank you so much.
Round.
Hooray!
All right, Helga, you had some thoughts you wanted to share with the class.
Okay, so we always try to go over like a point or two about like, hey, what we're seeing in video. And so like we try to make some call outs of like, this is the reason why I'm like seeing this C shape, or this is this. One of the harder things to see in video is frustration and lack of threat management. Like higher end fighters can see that pretty easy because we're just like, there's no control in this fight. But trying to teach somebody how to see that in video. And so I figured that's a great way to end this of like, what is a thing that each of the coaches here and both students that got to take this class with us would say that is a key thing that they see in some of the stuff that came up tonight of like lack of threat management or like some frustration in video. Like, and Sean, I'm just going to throw you right under the bus as a starting one.
Sure. You're gonna make me go
okay.
first.
I thought you were going to call shut out on something.
I thought you were gonna tell me that I have no threat management.
No, I'm going to tell you what is something that you see in video that is kind of key to saying somebody is either frustrated in the fight or they aren't managing the threat well.
So, Twyg, one of the things that I saw, we touched on this a little bit. When you're engaging the fight, you were doing what I refer to as pre-programming, where you sit back at a deep range, and you decide how the fight's going to go, and then you get to your opponent as fast as you can, right? By all means necessary, and once you get there, you're just going to execute that pre-programming that you already set up, regardless of what is actually happening in the fight.
Yeah,
and that is absolutely a process of threat management, right? I see this a lot. I see people running into range, like jumping both feet off the ground to get into range, right? And the reality is, the difference between like C range and B range is literally a foot span. Right. It's your foot span. It's not 12 inches, 8 inches. It's your foot span because it's your range. Right. When you decide that you're ready to engage that fight, and you're ready to put yourself in a good offensive range for you, you just take a step into range and then you execute. Right. You can't know what targets are available to you until you put yourself in a position to have access to those targets. Right. So you deciding what targets you're going to throw when you're 6 feet away from your opponent, like by the time you get to them, all those targets are gone anyway. Right. So, and it's something that like, it takes like some balls, really. I mean, it takes some confidence to be able to just like, all right, we're going to engage the fight now. Boom, one step and I'm there. But what happens when you're rushing into that range like that? You are actually blinding yourself to what is happening in the fight because you're so fixated on gaining a certain amount of distance. And by the time you get to that distance, now you have to look up and find your opponent again, right?
So I'm gonna steal your soapbox, Sean, and say, so how do we see this in video? Do you see that like rushing through the edge of measure, like the same shot selections being made?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The way I see it is, again, that I'm going to jump in, I'm going to rush in, I'm going to get there as fast as I can. You're throwing a shot to kind of suppress the weapon a little bit, but your whole thing, like you're rushing in to get to that, and that's definitely threat management.
All right,
I don't know why my camera's being so weird, but
say what?
Are you ready for this question?
Oh, sure. Sean took some of the ones I like, so now I got to come up with some new stuff. But... So I think people read pressure in a fight, and it depends on how good your opponent is at controlling and emoting pressure. You can see it in a lot in video where you can watch a fight happen where it's a very aggressive and tumultuous fight because somebody's bringing a lot of energy and pressure, and then that pressure gets taken away and their opponent doesn't know what to do. Suddenly that opponent is flat-footed. They aren't able to even engage the fight because their opponent took away all the pressure and isn't feeding them any energy. So it's paying attention to that takes practice, and I would practice it at practice. I'm gonna have to put a lot of dollars in the jar tonight, huh? Spend some time reading your opponent and how they are reacting to you. When do they react to you? How do they react to you? Stomp the ground. Get right up where you think pressure is going to happen. Give it a stomp. Do they flinch? Most everybody will give you some type of tell or read. But you see that in video a lot. If a superior opponent that's for the internal mental side can exhaust a less experienced fighter. And you can watch the less experienced fighter engage and react off of that pressure constantly instead of being able to relax in it because they don't know how. Did you want more, Helga?
That's
Bronos right there in the back in the backstage.
I love that. Do you need more, Helga? Can I
stop talking? You're next. What do you see?
I'm good.
What do I see? Okay, first off, I want to say this to all fighters out there: stop having plans.
Yeah.
Okay. So number one, stop having fucking plans. And the reason I say that is if you go in with a plan and your opponent does not do the plan, right? You know that Steve always throws an offside head when you come in, right? Well, but if he doesn't, now you're behind the curve trying to figure out what the hell's going on in the fight. Steve is still in the fight, right? And he's now stolen the tempo and the initiative from you. So what you need to do is, this is all about learning fundamental skills and being comfortable, like Sean was saying, crossing through that zone and just being okay with the fact that there's stuff going on. But if you have faith in your fundamental skills, you can then walk into the zone at any range and be comfortable with what's happening in the fight at that moment, right? Your opponent's going to tell you where they want you to hit them. Yeah. So stop going in with the idea that because when we're talking about this, what do I see in these videos? Like when someone crosses that zone and they throw a couple shots and then they just start looking around. You can see them stop and like your shield was like, it'll just stop moving. And they're just going, I don't even know what's going on, right? They're hoping that something's going to happen instead of either making something happen or reacting to something that's already happening. So that's what I look for when that happens. So part of that is to get you out of that mindset is to stop having plans and work on just all your basic fundamental skills, which then you can rely on to defend you and create those opportunities as you move through these different zones. And like I said, if the fight sucks, it's okay to get out of it for a moment and come back to it, right? Don't stay in a bad situation just because you're already there, right? You can always come back, especially if you know you can get out. So those are kind of my little things I look for in these fights when I see people. They get kind of just lost in the moment, and then your opponent, who is waiting for you to make a mistake, is waiting for you to look, right? So there you go.
Awesome.
So Hroaldrsson, your next one going on the bus. Or Hrothgierr. Oh my God, Hroaldrsson. Sorry, I was just on the phone with him. So Hrothgierr, you're next under the bus. What is something that you're going to look for in your video to say you're either not perceiving the threat or you're getting frustrated?
Boy. That's a very good question.
If you don't have an answer, that's actually totally okay. You say like, I'm going to spend the next couple of weeks like looking for this.
Yeah, figure it out.
I think from looking back from my fights yesterday, it's going to be if I just start giving ground. If I start giving ground without doing anything else, that's a pretty good sign that I am not picking up the thread of what my opponent is doing.
Solid. Especially if you're giving it away for free.
Yeah.
So, Twyg, same question?
Yeah, I can immediately tell you, because I've been thinking as I've been fighting, it's going to show up in video too, 110%, which is I know that I've been too aggressive when I go in and I just watch the person gently stand there and go, yeah, whatever. And I go, all right. And I go, yep, and I bail and I come back. So in the video, if I'm seeing that I'm the first one to move or I'm patterning or I'm doing the same poke, right? Pod, like pawing at them, right? That's one of the things I notice I do is I paw to try to get them to do something. No, sit there and wait. Let them do that to me. And then I'll react on them and open up that counterpunch. Because counterpunching is a blast. So I should just be using more of it, right? But if I'm sitting there pawing, I'm not counterpunched. And now I'm the one who gets counterpunched. So I'll look for that in my videos more and more.
But here's the thing, real quick, just because I want to counterpunch. So part of pressure, if you roll into somebody and you watch them in video, then you figure out when that counterpunch happens, when you can feel that pressure, all your opponent has to do is trigger you. And then block the bullet. Now, if you don't block the bullet, that's your own damn fault. But yes. So be careful, because people that have that, you can almost taste somebody wanting to counterpunch. You can feel it, and you're right on the edge of that pressure, and then you have a choice. Do I trigger it, or do I try and sneak one more inch closer and beat them to the punch, kind of thing? So be careful when you're looking at that. And again, all these things, all this pressure and the feeling of the fight, you have to practice that, just like your flat snap. Walk in, and if you're not comfortable standing in B range, then go out there, all practice, and make yourself stay in that mid range of measure.
Mm-hmm.
Work your way up to A range. I call it surfing your opponent. I want to trigger somebody to go crazy, and I want to ride the surfboard until I get killed. Just going to go out there, and I'm going to surf the movement and try and stay where I want to stay until they tell me it's time not to be there. And then, okay, I acknowledge the blow, and we start again. So I think those are great tools, especially with a superior opponent. How long can you keep up tempo with somebody before they overtake you? Can you change tempo, make them start over again? Find those things in a fight that allow you to control that pressure a little bit and be more comfortable with it. Another 25 cents from Octa. I'm out.
Yeah, I think one of the other things about counterpunching, the idea of counterpunching, my knight Brian, he thinks of himself very much as a counterpuncher, but there's a lot of people who would think they are counterpunching, but what they're doing is just firing for effect. And any motion that they see, they're firing what they think is a counter shot, and it's not really, because in order, the whole idea of counterpunching is you have to address the threat correctly, and then you have to respond accordingly to whatever is open. And I think a lot of people that think they're doing counterpunching, they're actually just firing for effect. And when I catch somebody that's doing that, a lot of times I'll just, like Octa said, I'll just trigger it. I'll just let you throw, and I don't even have to know where you're going to throw if I know when you're going to throw. And if I can make you throw, now I get to just block whatever you're throwing. And then now, like Thorfin was saying, now I'm a beat ahead, right? Because you've wasted your shot on just throwing something out there because you think you're counterpunching. And I've triggered you. I've forced you to throw that shot. And now I'm in control of the fight, and you're in recovery and on defense. So it's something
we can teach an entire class on counterpunching there and go off for hours on it.
Correct.
So to answer my own question real quick, in video of like what I'm looking for when I'm either seeing frustration or somebody that doesn't control an edge of measure is bum rushing the fight and or standing in my opponent's X and dying. So we saw both of these tonight in very classic examples. And I'll tell you guys, like, go watch this of Hrothgierr. You were fighting absolutely in your opponent's range. So I can tell you you're not seeing the range. And Twyg, you're running into range, which means you don't know the edge of measure. And so those are two very easy things to see in video for everybody out there to take away as tools. Is you're not watching either of these fighters manipulate their opponent at that edge of measure right now. It's pretty, like, once you start seeing it, it's very easy to see. Take a lot of time watching video to find it. The second one is Hrothgierr, to pick on you a little bit. Love you lots. We could actually start seeing him get frustrated in these fights because you watch the body language go from on guard, where he had tension in his body, to he started relaxing. There's this like, I don't know what to fucking do. And it's literally, if you think about like your own body language, when you don't know what to do and that like slacked over, there's no tension, they're just kind of like meandering into the fight, like, I don't know what to do. That is actually a very key thing that you are watching somebody become frustrated on video because they've given up. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to bring another answer, and they have actually forgotten how to play in the fight. And so if you start seeing this in your students in practice videos, this is a key thing to bring up and be like, hey, I feel like you didn't know how to go back to playing here. Like you were just, it didn't become data anymore. It became like, it was about the emotion and that, like you didn't know what to do. So how do we get you back to play? How do we get you back to like playing at the edge of measure and trying new things? Because right now I'm not seeing this. And so that's a really big thing to watch for in video. It's a really big thing to watch for in practice. If you see somebody slogging in, they're probably dealing with frustration. They've forgotten that practice is just play. There's no king of practice. Right. There's nothing else. We're after a shit ton of data here. And so if you see that on the opposite scale of this, that really closed down hand, if they look like they're about to try to arm wrestle somebody while they're hanging onto their stick, probably also a frustrated fighter. So we see the two opposite ends of the spectrum. It's, again, practice watching this. Ask your friends, like, hey, can you send me a video of when you were frustrated fighting? And look at their body language. You're going to either see them slacking, hanging on their own joints, or you're going to see them over gripping everything and trying to like just hammer blow the fight. It's a great way to develop your own eye.
All right. Well, we are coming up on time, so we're going to wrap up here a little bit. Would like to say again, thank you to Hrothgierr and Twyg for coming on and allowing us to pick apart your fights. Again, hopefully some other folks out there were able to see some of what they're doing in their own fights and what you're doing and some of the ways we've been able to correct this. We all as coaches very much believe in video review. I think analyzing fighting is an absolutely critical skill. I think it is more effective to do that analysis live while the fights are happening. However, I think it's easier to learn how to do that analysis using video. And again, you've seen some of the tools that we've used here tonight, mostly on the YouTube. YouTube's come a long way since I first started posting.
Right.
I mean, the tools that we have, like I said, being able to hit quarter speed and be able to do frame by frame, just go through and pick it apart and look at it and understand that very rarely, it's like, why did this person get hit? Oh, because that guy's just faster than me. Like,
that's not right.
That's not it. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are just fast. Okay. There's a reason that you got hit, and being able to back it up about 5 to 10 seconds and being able to watch everything that led up to the impact. The impact itself is not telling. It's everything that led up to that point of impact. That's what got you killed. That's what got you hit. And being able to use the video tools that we have, that's the way you find that out, and that's the way you can avoid that sort of stuff, and that's how we can see the things that we're seeing and hopefully send you guys down the road with some stuff to work on. So for those folks out there watching, go take a look, slow it down, play with it. There's thousands of hours of us fighting out there, so go take a look and really just enjoy it and have a good time with it, and try analyzing other fighters, and then go back and look at your stuff as well, for sure. So all right, Octa, any last comments?
No, I just really appreciate these guys coming on. Thanks. It was a good time, and thanks for having an open mind. My all takeaway is always beginner's mind. You always have something new to learn. You just got to be open to it, and coming on here and putting your videos out for the whole community to see and dissect take some guts and some wanting to get better. So I appreciate that. We all love this sport. So can't wait to see where you go.
All right, Thorfin.
Yeah, I again want to say thank you guys. It's really cool of you to both put this up for us to do. If you ever see me in person, feel free to come over and ask me. And if we're not friends on any kind of social media, reach out. And I love talking about this stuff. I watch fight videos almost every night. My lady goes to bed around 10:30, and then I start watching fight videos and sumo wrestling. So that's what I ain't doing much. So just hit me up. But again, thank you all. This was super fun, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, Helga.
Again, I'm gonna echo the thank you very much. Both you guys have been amazing to work with. The coaches, as always, thank you guys for your insight and playing around as we get to both talk to two students and try to further the video review out there online. So thank you.
No doubt. Thank you. All right. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in and watching what we do. Thanks for all the comments and the questions in the comment section. Really appreciate all of that. And we will have another one of these, another video review May 12th, I think, something like that. I got a couple other fighters lined up. Yeah, thanks again, everybody, and everybody have a good night.
Keep rocking on your heart.
Thank you.